Morning. So 2 months ago, I went back to the church where I grew up in Kearney, New Jersey. It's 10 miles from New York City. My dad was a Lutheran minister, and his dad was a Lutheran minister, and his dad was a Lutheran minister. So visiting my old church meant that I could show my family the house, what is also known as the parsonage or the house of the pastor, that I grew up in. It's right next door to the church. And because of the proximity, my dad was one of the original work from home people. He could walk across the backyard and be at his office in 30 seconds. And that allowed him to also be the parent on call if we needed him after school. The church was started by an immigrant group of Swedish Lutherans. So the ceiling of the church inside is a replica of an upside down Swedish Viking ship. The church was not only our home, it was a constant demonstration of my dad's devotion to the job. He was always there. And there were countless nights when he would say to my mom after dinner, "I'm going to head over to the hospital and visit with so-and-so. They just had a heart attack, or their mother is dying." This was a big part of his ministry, being with people who were in crisis and facing desperate moments. The woman who lived next door was the church secretary, and her husband was the janitor, and his name was Ed Burns. Ed would polish the wooden floors of the church and the handles of the doors at the front so they would shine. He painstakingly cared for the grass and the flowers. Ed died many years ago, but as I stood 2 months ago in the courtyard, showing my family the gates to the bell tower, I knew something was not right. The lawn was unkempt and overgrown. The few stairs leading up to the front door were chipped, and I realized the sign out front announcing the time of the Sunday service was frozen in time. So I Googled the church to see what was happening and made a painful discovery. The church that I grew up in has shut down. In fact, the property has now been transferred over to the town, and they plan on making a new community center out of it. The members of the church had long ago ceased to be Swedish Lutherans. They were Lutherans of all backgrounds, and there were also people who were lapsed Catholics, or those who had found Christian faith through my dad. So the end of the church is certainly in part a result of changing demographics in the town. But that's not the whole story. It's also part of a larger decline in church participation. And as I was standing there and feeling this strong swirl of emotions and intense memories, I was feeling the grief for my dad, of course, but also for the church, the place I struggled to learn how to play poorly in the church bell choir, the site of my first communion, where I learned how to be an acolyte and light candles. And I was disturbed that it had shut down. It stayed with me. But I was surprisingly not shaken. And that's because of this place. I knew that there is a stark contrast between the weeds growing in the courtyard of my childhood church and the energy in this room. The contrast between the empty Sunday school rooms in my old church and the loud, busy halls that are here. We found Good Shepherd almost by accident. We'd been visiting churches in the DC area where we live, but nothing felt right. Most of them were too quiet, and our noisy kids felt out of place. Then 8 years ago, my parents moved into Asbury Methodist Village down the road. And my mom, a devoted Lutheran, needed to go to church, and this was non-negotiable. So we came here and have remained here ever since. And it's the incredible music here, the community, the Bible studies, the thriving Christian education program for our kids, and the spiritual support we got when both of my parents passed away. So I was happy to speak today about our commitment to the church, to the Accelerate campaign, and to the broader Lutheran Church as a whole. This place gives me real hope, and I'm very grateful.